Hey guys! Part 6 of What If Naruto Lives in a Post-Apocalyptic World. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 11. Drop our weapons? Are you insane? They'll kill us, someone said to Ao's side. To be honest, the former Kirin didn't blame these expressed thoughts. However, they didn't see what he saw. They could feel what he felt. They didn't see the nigh overwhelming, overpowering, unstoppable, dare he say, godlike chakra that surged from the blonde. They just didn't understand that even if they had their weapons, they would still lose. The only hope for them would be Ranmaru and Raiga. As much as he loathed the latter, the man had their savior's complete trust. The former always gave the latter more than enough chakra where everyone else was only given a fraction of that. A bead of sweat fell down his face. Listen to me. He's an existence which only Ranmaru-sama and Raiga-san can put down. Just follow my lead, he said before they all felt the sudden rise in chakra again. Ao gulped. The beast was coming. Meanwhile, Naruto was ready to use another jutsu. He was prepared to cut down these people who attacked them. To think they'd have the gall to use a jutsu against him of all people. How offensive. Naruto, wait! Kurenai exclaimed, which got him to stop before he swung his arm, which would have released a whirl of wind-enhanced fire blades. He'd have turned the entire Yugakure village into a pile of smoldering rock. What? He asked. Kurenai watched the opposing group jump on top of a building. One of them, seemingly the leader of the group, began hand-signing to them. She'd seen it a few times. There was a universal sign to shinobi of all nations in the way of surrender. Of course, the enemy wasn't obligated to care about the surrender, but it showed strength to give mercy. They're telling us they surrender, she said. I blinked. Why would they surrender? They have more people than us. Something's wrong, the former waitress said. Slowly, the genjutsu mistress agreed. Perhaps they were terrified of Naruto's jutsu. Just like us, who knows when was the last time they've seen a jutsu like that? I think we should take it. That one with the sword could use jutsu. If he can, we don't know how many others can. If Naruto was by himself, I'd be a bit more confident to rely on him, but unfortunately I am, and I might not do too well against people with chakra. If we push it, we could be taken hostage, she replied. Naruto snarled. I'd sooner raise them to the ground than allow that to happen, Databeo. He replied, his tone notably darker, which made them both shiver. Whether they shivered from excitement or surprise was only known to them, but both smiled. They couldn't help the odd, yet welcome protectiveness of their blonde leader. Should we just disengage then? Just leave? I asked. Kurenai frowned. I don't think so. It's not impossible that they'd follow us if we left. They could return with greater numbers if they are a community. We'd have to go far, and we don't know how far we'd have to go. Should we hear them out? She asked. Naruto clenched his fists and sighed. He quickly pushed some green chakra into his eyes. He looked around the area. I don't see anyone else, he said. I stared out as well. We also don't know why they can use chakra. Either way, the fact that they can, and they're scared of Naruto-kun means that there's something about him they can't face. What do you think, Naruto-kun? She asked. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki's frown deepened. He eased himself despite the displeasure on his face. He didn't like this, but he couldn't explain why. All right. Stay close to me, he said. Both agreed. He grabbed them both and jumped them to another rooftop away from the opposite team. As the wastelands of Yugakure got even stronger, the two forces stared at each other. Ao stared at the sandstorm that threatened to overwhelm them in a moment. Once again he was left in awe of the blonde's jutsu. Just one jutsu had changed the nature of the environment so heavily. He had to be one of them, a wasteland royal. That was a term that seemed to start popping up around the world as of late. Many of the survivors who joined Ranmaru's community started calling him that as well. That was the name given to those who, somehow, could supply chakra to others. He never spoke of Ranmaru outside of regular trading provinces. A few settlements had been created far and wide. Had he spoken of Ranmaru, he truly feared how many people would try to either kill or take the boy. That said, could they even resist his presence enough to try? Ao didn't want to find out. The older man exhaled. We surrender. We don't wish to fight you. I believe this is all a misunderstanding. Perhaps we can go inside and talk? He suggested. Chojuro and the rest of his group looked at him strangely. The same could be said for Naruto's group. We'll stay out here, Naruto replied, his arms folded. Ao wasn't sure why he gulped, but he turned his head. He looked at the prevailing winds. They were getting stronger. He could see some of the destroyed buildings beginning to crash into each other. If we stay out here, then we'll all be trapped in the sandstorm. I don't know where your group's been, but these storms can hide terrible things, he said. Ayam and Kurenai stared at the approaching sandstorm. Though they didn't see anything, they suddenly felt anxious by Ao's words. Naruto's eyes quickly darted to the sandstorm and back to the group in front of him. He snarled. Go back home then. We'll stay on this side of the village. If you come over to this side, I'll kill you, Naruto remarked before he turned away. He grabbed Ayam and Kurenai. He took them off the rooftop and they disappeared into the village. Ao sighed. We're leaving. Report to Ranmaru-sama and Raiga-san. They'll know what to do. Besides, we were running low on chakra anyway, he said. The others quickly agreed. They then stared at the oncoming sandstorm. Even now, they could all see the hulking figure within it. It seemed this would be a night for no hot food. Meanwhile, Naruto, Ayam, and Kurenai took residence in a Yugakure hot springs hotel. As one might expect, the hotel was just as trashed as every other building they'd been in prior. However, at least it wasn't in danger of being brought to its knees. They settled into one room. Naruto grabbed some ripped curtains and nailed them to the wall around some windows. It wasn't long before the three heard the buffeting sounds of harsh sand and wind outside. The distant howls and echoes of the wasteland made the trio rather melancholy. Ayam marked off some things from their list of what they'd gotten from Yugakure. They then began to make more plans on where to go next with their map while they ate their food. It might be best to leave this village in 1 or 2 days, Naruto said, which both agreed with. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that group leaves tonight to bring people back. We don't know how many people they've got. We also don't know if any of them are like Naruto. I think we just got lucky that of that group, they must not have had a lot of chakra left. I bet that was why they were scared of Naruto. They couldn't contend with him. The situation changes if they bring more, Kurenai replied. Ayam tapped a part of the map. To the west, there is Takigakure. We could try something there. We could also head north into Shimo, Frost Country. Though I don't think we're equipped to deal with cold weather, it could be a bit from Yugakure and these people. The others agreed. Once that plan was made, Naruto unsealed their sleeping bags and they began a leisurely time reading or talking. They did speak a bit on why that group could use chakra, but the theories were just too many. As the sandstorm got stronger, so much that it made the hotel shake, the trio fell asleep while a clone kept watch. As Naruto closed his eyes, he thought he heard the sound of thunder rolling in the desolate clouds. He also thought he saw something hop across the rooftops. As the moon hung in the late-night sky, Naruto slowly opened his eyes. A sense of dread moved through him. His eyes moved through the room he, Kurenai, and Ayam were sleeping in just to make sure his head wasn't messing with him. It was as he feared. His clone was gone. No, not gone as in it went somewhere. It was gone because it got popped. His clone had been forcibly dispelled. All of its memories flowed into his head. The clone had been practicing with some chakra control exercises before it heard something creak downstairs. It ignored it at first since it sounded like nothing different from the sandstorm rushing outside, but then, the creaks continued in intensity. The clone moved to investigate. It walked through every hall before it came to the very bottom of the hotel. The door was open. As soon as that realization appeared on the clone, it was destroyed. Naruto snarled. I knew I should have killed them. He thought before he quietly unzipped his sleeping bag. He moved away from Ayam and placed his ear on the floor. He channeled the green chakra inside him to his ears. If that group came to their side, then they chose the wrong place. There's been a reason that Naruto chose this hotel. It was very creaky. It would be hard for anyone to move through it and sneak up on his friends. Already the blonde was making plans for when they would leave in the morning. Once he killed this group, who knew how long it would take for their community to find them? Anyway, Naruto continued to listen for a few minutes. He frowned when he heard 1, 2, 3, 4, 15, 20 pairs of feet. What the hell? The blonde shivered. He heard some type of pattering steps moving through the halls of the lower floors of the hotel. The steps sounded too small from the usual grown men and women he'd heard. It didn't seem like they were trying to be sneaky, they were just roaming around. Could that group's people have come already? He didn't think so. Naruto then moved the chakra to his nose. Aside from the pleasant smell of IM and Kurenai, the stench of the hotel, and the dry sand outside, he wasn't sure if there was any other stench. No, wait. He did smell something. It wasn't a human smell, it smelled like blood. An odd mixture of blood and saliva dropped on the floor. He knew because he heard it. It was like someone who hadn't eaten in weeks being given a wonderful, delicious meal. Their mouth watered ceaselessly. He then heard sizzling of some kind. It was very minor, almost like when a small drop of water lands on a hot stove. Drip! Drip! Sizzle! Drip! Drip! Sizzle! It was then that he heard something else. He heard a sound that made his fears warranted. He heard the small, skittering screech of an unknown creature. He then heard another, and another, and another. Leaning up, Naruto quickly channeled his chakra into his eyes. He gasped. If one would describe his chakra as a massive inferno, what he saw was an unconquerable firestorm, burning long and wide. It was like the tiny green flames of each body were melding together to create this beast of chakra that surpassed his own. When was the last time he felt this feeling of utter dread? Was it back in Konoha? Was it at the fire capital? Then, he heard something that sounded like scraping. He thought he heard claws. It wasn't the bone crawlers. They were much bigger than the average man. They couldn't pitter-patter like this. Was this something that formed while he and his friends were on Yuzushiogaku? Either way, they couldn't stay here. Naruto silently walked over to IM and Kurenai. He shook them both. Both groaned. He shook them harder. Wahm? IM asked before she felt Naruto cover her mouth with his hand. He placed a finger to his lips. Though drowsy, the former ramen waitress couldn't mistake the sense of urgency in her friend's eyes. She silently nodded. Then the Genjutsu mistress woke up. Just like with IM, Naruto urged for her silence. Confused, but understanding, she nodded and remained silent. Pack our things. Creatures. Naruto signed to them. The two widened their eyes before they heard the floorboards afloor below them creak. Do you know what? Kurenai asked back. She laid horrified when Naruto signed that he didn't know what they were facing. IM shivered, but both quickly removed themselves from their sleeping bags. The creaking got stronger. The two women could now hear the tiny squeaks from below. Something that sounded like a sheet being ripped alerted them. IM and Kurenai gave Naruto their sleeping bags. He sealed them into the scrolls. They each picked up their kunai and shuriken sets. They thought to make their way out the window, but the sandstorm had gotten stronger. Tons of debris flew everywhere. They even heard the crash of one of the buildings as it was brought to its knees. Once they were ready, the trio made their way to the door. Naruto slowly opened it. He peeked through the door. The hotel's hallway was clear. In fact, it was so clear it was downright creepy. The shadows moved along the wall and floor almost ominously. The noises had stopped. All that was left was a distant howl in the wind. The door creaked open. When Naruto pushed the green chakra into his eyes, he could still see the raging firestorm that was these creatures. However, it was too large for him to point out any of them specifically. They just seemed to be standing, waiting, maybe even listening. Another finger to his lips, he walked out. They followed him. Once they vacated the room, they entered the hallway. Naruto set up a tripwire with some explosion tags and a broken match. They then continued on their way. It was times like this the blonde was grateful for the green chakra. It made him come up with a plan of just in cases. He'd gone through a few escape paths out of the hotel on the thought that they might get attacked. The trio turned around a corner. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki took a moment to look around the corner they just left. He swallowed the lump in his throat. Like tiny bulbs of light, he saw multiple eyes illuminated in the darkness. The eyes blinked. What? How did they even get up here? He hadn't even heard them move. Worried, Naruto took out a kunai. The hall extended past the corner they turned and he threw it all the way down. It clanged against the wall. The eyes darted forward. Naruto grabbed Im and Kurinai. They hid behind a barely standing ornament cabinet as they heard the pitter-patter of feet. They watched the eyes run across the open corridor towards the hall that Naruto threw the kunai down. One of them gave pause and stared down the hall the group was in. It tilted its head to the side before it ran off as well. Once the steps moved down the hall, the trio continued down the path they were in. The leader of the three remembered a series of steps that led to a window in the corner of an alleyway. That would provide cover from the sandstorm and hopefully cover their escape. The three made it to the staircase. However, they shivered. Beneath the barest of light from the outside, they spotted their enemies. The creatures which littered the entire hotel now occupied the stairwell. Upon close inspection, Naruto couldn't tell if they were human before or not. If they were, then he pitied them greatly. If they were animals before, then they were not something Kami could have made on her own. For one, their backs were horribly hunched forward. They had beady eyes, glowing like phosphorus light. Their mouths were filled with jagged, curved teeth. They were very small as well. If you dared give them a size comparison, Naruto would think they'd come up to either his kneecap or his stomach. Next, their snouts were elongated. They seemed to breathe through little holes on their forehead. Razor-sharp nails lengthened from their fingers. They screeched and squawked at each other like birds. Their heads made irregular movements left and right. Behind them wiggled some type of tail forged in reinforced bone marrow. On their neck lay disgusting bloated sacks of pus. What those sacks were for, Naruto didn't want to find out. He urged his friends to stay where they were. He didn't understand why, but his danger senses were going haywire. Something within him was telling him that he could not fight these tiny creatures, not yet anyway. How he knew this, he really didn't know. Trust him, he didn't. It had been so long since he felt this way. This sense of fear and mystery. Yayuf! Yawa! Greya! They screeched together. Naruto made it to the stairwell railing. He noticed at least 5 of the creatures there. Their pulsating skin, green luminescent veins, and soulless, white eyes moved as the creatures bit the sides of the stair handles. Just where the hell did these things come from? Maybe this was what that guy from before said. Naruto inhaled and exhaled. He then held out his hand. He watched the green chakra strings move through the air. He'd have to clear the stairs, and there'd be no better time than now. Even now he could see the outline of the green chakra around one of them. Just as he practiced, Naruto latched his chakra to the nearest one. It squirmed strangely for a moment. As soon as the blonde held control over the creature, he shivered. Through its eyes, he could see some kind outline by which it hunted. At the very least, he noticed that it didn't have great eyesight. It was close to the window, and even that couldn't be seen clearly. From the fact that he threw the kunai and they followed it, they must have had exceptional hearing. It couldn't have been a sense of smell. He and his friends would have been spotted right away. Either way, his body felt absolutely disgusting. A mixed and mangled mash of flesh and unknown circulating fluids laced together that just felt sickeningly unreal. Brat, hurry up. I sense something wrong, Kyuubi stated as he watched what his host was doing. Right, Naruto replied. Gra-wa! The creature Naruto controlled suddenly roared and attacked its friends. All hell seemed to break loose as they crashed, clawed, and bit at one another before they went crashing down the flight of steps. Soon the fighting escalated as the sounds of crushed bones, snapped limbs, and torn flesh ruptured through the hotel. However, at least they got off the stairwell. Unfortunately, their noise started bringing others over. They attacked each other viciously, almost psychotically. Forgive the Uzumaki heir if he didn't stick around to find out what they were gonna do to each other. He pulled up the window. Kurenai and Ayam joined him. Naruto tied a rope to the railing and soon the last of the three went out. The others covered her, growing more worried as more illuminated eyes pierced the darkness. The Genjutsu mistress gasped as one of them suddenly roared. Naruto cursed before he grabbed the former Jonin. "Kyuso! Just go! I'll catch up," he said as he pushed Kurenai out the window. "What? Wait, Naruto! Do you dare?" Kurenai gasped as the winds from the sandstorm blasted into her face while she fell out the window. For her, time seemed to slow down in agonizing ways as she saw Naruto pull out a kunai and shout as one of the beasts crashed into him. The Genjutsu mistress felt like her entire body shut down before she fell into the dusty alleyway. "Kurenai-san, are you alright? Where's Naruto-kun?" Ayam asked. Before the Jonin could even give a reply, she cursed when they saw white eyes appear from around the alleyway's corner. "Shaya! Shaya!" They snarled, their teeth dripping with bloodied saliva. Both ladies felt the fear settle in their hearts when one of them dropped a torn limb, its flesh saturated with teeth marks. For someone like her, perhaps it wasn't right to say this, but all thought left Kurenai. On pure instinct alone, she grabbed Ayam and the two ran away into the depths of Yugakura's sandstorm. "Kurenai, stop! Where is Naruto-kun?" Ayam asked, fearful of the answer. She nearly felt her very soul crumble to pieces as Kurenai grabbed her even tighter. Both ladies ran as fast as they could as the creatures roared, hopping along the rooftops and stalking them as they did so. The ramen waitress turned back to the hotel they had been sleeping in just moments ago. This damn world. This fucking world. What had humanity done to deserve to be cursed like this? The two women disappeared into the village of Yugakura's destroyed area, blocking debris and crashing buildings as they did so. More of the creatures which roamed outside chased after them, stalking them, waiting for them to get tired, toying with them. Meanwhile, Naruto roared as he grabbed one of the creatures and slammed its head into the wall. He ran through the halls of the hotel as more of these things ran after him. The sandstorm raged outside as a tongue lasher, he'd call it that for now, jumped on top of him. He decided to call it that because, like a flower blooming in the spring, the flaps of its face blossomed in 4 directions. Then, he dodged his head as a tongue laced with sharp bone-like blades stabbed the floor behind him. He had to admit, though they were small, these things were fucking strong. He moved his head to the left as its tongue lashed out again. "Reaik! Reaik! Yak!" Others screeched as they observed. The blonde didn't know why they weren't attacking. However, that was going to prove to be a vital mistake. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki pushed both green and red chakra through his body. He kicked the tongue lasher through the ceiling several floors above him before he faced the others. They slowly advanced on him, their glowing eyes a constant reminder of their presence. Naruto slammed his hands together. "Kneel," he said with an ungodly smirk on his face. "Katon, Chogokaku no Jutsu, Fire Release, Super Grand Fireball Technique," Naruto exclaimed as he placed 2 fingers over his lips and blew a massive stream of bright, orange flames towards the 10 or so tongue lashers he'd seen. They screeched from the sudden intrusion of light before the flames overtook them. He heard the screams of pain through the burning halls. As he kept the fire jutsu going, he then took his other hand and formed a series of one-handed signs. "Raiten, Jibashi, Lightning Release, Electromagnetic Murder," he called out next. The floors beneath his feet surged with powerful thunder currents. So powerful was it that, if anyone outside was watching, they would have seen a giant ball of fire covered in lightning crash from the hotel room and roll through the eastern quadrant of the village of Hot Springs. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki brushed the side of his face as he stared at the charred tunnel of flaming debris he'd created. "Kurenai-chan, Ayam-chan, please be alright," Naruto thought. The air was laced with so much green chakra that he couldn't properly point them out. Suddenly, Naruto heard a crash through the wall. Another tongue lasher launched at him. He barely had the time to grab a Fuma Shuriken and block its strike. This one must have been unique before it crashed him right through the wall and into the outside. Naruto kicked it away from him as he flew through the air and crashed into the hot sand. His body ragdolled before he jumped back and landed on his feet. The wind blasted in his face mercilessly. It was very dark and he had to keep his eyes covered. Thankfully, he reached for his goggles in time and placed them on. Unfortunately, that didn't seem to be the case needed for his adversaries. The blonde gasped when he suddenly found himself surrounded. He knew because he could feel the green chakra all around him. With his goggles, he could also see the white glare of so many eyes. Some hid behind buildings, but others began making their way to him. He swore he saw over 50 pairs of glowing white eyes upon him. When had so many of them appeared? Ya ya ya, ya ha ha ya, they whispered as he frowned. They got closer. The Uzumaki heir growled. Don't get fucking cocky, he exclaimed to himself before he pushed the green chakra into his legs and he dashed off to the west side of the village. The ground beneath his feet exploded in sand from each step he placed on the ground. The blonde growled as he surfed on the sand with the added chakra to it as the wind created various sand tsunamis threatening to overwhelm KyuubiGoku. As he moved through the village he saw the tongue lashers snarl as they jumped across rooftops, keeping up with him at great speeds. All the while, some of them lashed out their considerably long tongues at them. So fast were they that even with his reaction time, he could barely dodge them all as they clashed with his kunai. The blonde grabbed about 15 shuriken and unleashed them all. He then sped through his hand signs, kneading the green and red chakra within him. Katan, Hozenka Tsumabini, Fire Release, Phoenix Sage Flower Nail Crimson, he shouted as he blew a white-hot stream of fire over the shuriken. Each weapon was illuminated with the light of flames as they raced for their targets. He saw the tongue lashers, ready to move. He was ready to add another jutsu, but he watched their mouth flaps open. Those chasing after him showed a toothy grin before they swallowed the shuriken and the chakra from the jutsu he just used. The flames got smaller and smaller as they ate more and more. The blue-eyed teen gawked. They can eat chakra? He thought. Kyuubi growled. It seems like it. Brat, whatever you're gonna do, you'd better do it fast. Need Naruto be told twice? No, not really. Naruto jumped from the sandy lands and onto the rooftops. The tongue lashers clawed after him. He shivered when he thought he heard a scream from somewhere. He looked to the north. It was from the area where that other group was. Unfortunately, Naruto didn't know what to do. He roared as he swung his arm. Green and red chakra-infused wind blades flew out from his arms. Instead of the creatures, he aimed for the buildings. He took away their footing. They screamed as they fell down. Naruto's chest burned and so did the rest of his legs. The mixture of the green chakra and the Kyuubi's chakra was phenomenal but utterly painful at the same time. He could feel his lungs collapsing and his heart clenching. He hated it. No matter how much he trained with his green chakra, this pain never subsided. He could feel every piece of sweat fall down the side of his cheek. He suddenly gasped as 5 tongue lashers suddenly appeared in front of him. He pulled up his kunai, but cursed when 2 creatures behind him wrapped their tongues around his left arm and leg. They pulled him back and, with the green chakra massaging the corners of his mind, he followed a correct path to counter. The young Uzumaki rolled back with the momentum. He jumped over the 2 that grabbed him and grabbed non-sharp parts of their tongue. Naruto roared as he swung them around and around. They bashed into the 5 that ambushed him and fell off the side of another building. However, as they fell, their bodies covered the other 3 tongues. The blonde gasped when he groaned as 3 bladed tongues struck the side of his face. He rubbed his cheek before his legs suddenly stumbled. He inhaled a deep piece of sandy air as he fell to his knees. What the hell happened to me? He questioned himself before his body began to twitch. He blinked as all around him became a blur of mangled lights and spots. The blonde tried to get up, but his chest burned. He fell forward and coughed. What was going on? Why did everything hurt? Every cell in his body was screaming. Don't ask him how he knew. He could just tell that they were. He grabbed the rooftop ledge. He could hear them snarling behind him as his muscles stiffened. His breath became raspy. He tried to lean up, but his arms suddenly spasmed. His hand smacked him in the face, and he fell off the side of the building. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki groaned as he bashed against a rusty stairwell. He crashed against the side of the wall all the way until he hit the ground. Sand in his mouth, he coughed up some blood. Kekuso, those damn things did something to me. He cursed. Kyuubi remained silent. He couldn't afford the conversation. The fox was too busy trying to dispel all the lethal poison in his host's body, but it was unlike anything he'd ever dealt with. It was like it was poisoning Naruto and the fox at the same time. Even the Kyuubi felt sluggish. Brat, you gotta get us out of here. I can't. The Kyuubi didn't get to finish before he fell silent. Naruto clawed at the ground. How the fuck had this mission gone so wrong? He snarled. You pieces of fucking shit. You dare raise yourselves against him? You dare strike him? You fucking dare? Naruto roared as he slammed his hand into the sand. Doton, Shingotoryuden, Earth Release, True Great Earth Dragon Bombs. He yelled as he forced up another hand sign. He felt the chakra within him soar so much he thought he'd explode from the inside out. However, for them, for Ayam and Kurenai, for the two he loved, he couldn't fall right now. Araten, Shingoreijuden, Lightning Release, True Great Lightning Beast Bombs. Naruto's chakra coils burned, but if anyone was alive in Yugakure, then they would have been utterly stunned by the sight before them. The ground beneath the sand rocked and shook with the force of a mighty earthquake. Hot steam expelled from pockets beneath the sand. Once standing buildings crashed and smashed into each other. A massive dragon-shaped beast made of stone blasted up from the ground and high into the air. The tongue lashers turned to it and screeched at it as it roared back. Then, the thunder in the skies exploded with a deafening boom. Lightning struck the ground. It struck the debris of fallen structures, causing them to catch fire. The winds got so strong, they caught on fire, creating blazing tornadoes that met with the flames around the village. The flaming winds tore through the ground. Tongue lashers across the village screamed as they were consumed by fire, lightning, and cracked earth. The clouds and skies tore apart with another roar. All eyes turned to the heavens and nearly felt the urge to kneel in reverence when a lightning dragon's head appeared above them all. A mighty currency of lightning surrounded it as it roared down as well. Then, both dragons opened their mouths. What happened next would have been ingrained in everyone's memory for a long time. A stream of mud and hot lightning struck through the village, explosions rocking the land like the very first time the meteor had fallen upon the elemental nations. Tongue lashers cried in the distance as they were crushed beneath mountains of earth, or waves of lightning so strong it burned the sand in beautiful crystals. Some of the lightning even mixed with the flaming tornadoes digging into the ground and tearing the village in two. The earth dragon buried the other half of the village in a cataclysm of torn, burned stone. Apartments and former hot springs, shops and stalls, hotels and motels, all crashed into each other as the maw of the earth opened up. Anyone unlucky enough to get away fell inside. Mountains and waves of sand fell down into the abyss below. As the two enormous jutsu finished, Naruto panted heavily. The tax of the green chakra and the remnants of the Kyuubi's chakra that he could control were heavy. His body felt like it was being torn in two. He tried to move, but the pain was too unbearable. He could barely keep his eyes open. The numbing neurotoxin within him made his eyes roll into the back of his head before he passed out. The tongue lashers surrounded Naruto. They waited a moment, or two longer just to make sure their prize was dead. It was a difficult prey to put down, but the overwhelming numbers finally showed their result. Two of the creatures stood over him, their claws itching. As one of them placed its mouth to the blonde, it suddenly screeched as a hand grabbed its face. Hee 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 ha 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 ha. Not bad. Not bad at all, Naruto's voice said as he struggled to his feet. He tightened his hold on the creature's face while its pack members jumped back. They watched as the tongue lasher, like an old prune, got more and more wrinkled as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki held it. If one looked closely, one could see the young man's demented smirk as the tendrils of green chakra in his body stabbed into the creature's skin. The chakra which powered the creature was swiftly sucked away, adding to the blonde's own. You dare raise your hands to me? You dare raise your hands to your god? I fucking made you, I own you, and I shall collect my recompense. That shall be the penalty of your sin. Feel honored that you shall become one with your god, Naruto claimed as his eyes glowed with a harsh green. He then opened his mouth. He sucked up the chakra from the tongue lasher until the creature faded to dust. It crumpled in his hands and he licked his lips. Amazing. Simply fucking amazing. Why had he not done this before? Hell, if he could take just a few more then. The green-eyed blonde turned his head to the others, silently observing what happened. The one that approached with its partner took a step back. Naruto's grin widened. No! There is no escape. You shall cement my legacy, the legacy of Uzumaki Naruto. The blonde screamed as he charged at the creatures. If one was to look upon the sight before them, they would have seen the grotesque sight of a sprawling of blood, broken bone, muscle tissue, and organs. Naruto cackled as the green chakra strings sucked the life energy from the wasteland's creatures. The tongue lashers that had gone against him, one by one, fell to dust as their chakra added itself to the former genins. He could feel it, his reserves getting stronger, his body forming and morphing the chakra to his own needs. Tch, it was a shame. What would he gain if he killed one like himself? Wait, actually, there was a way to do that. Yes, there was that way. Amidst the mountains of tongue lasher corpses, the green light faded from Naruto's eyes. The poison took its hold again, and the blonde fell with his face in the sand. The last thing he thought of was Ayam and Kurenai. He hoped they were all right. He closed his eyes. Over time, the invasion of Yugakure had come to a close. Slowly, Naruto opened his eyes. His head hurt like hell. If this was what that pervy sage described as a hangover, then he sure as hell swore he wouldn't ever drink. When he observed his surroundings, he stiffened. One thing Naruto noticed was that he was in what could only be described as a cell. Iron bars stabbed in the top and bottom of rock walls, a cold, hard floor, and his hands bound behind his back. Yup, definitely some sort of prison cell. The blonde groaned and tried to lean up, but he found he couldn't move. Hell, he couldn't even talk. The young man tried to lean up, but unbridled pain moved through his body. He tried to channel some of his green chakra to enhance his strength and snap the ropes, but he couldn't summon up the power. He sucked his teeth. I see you're awake. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki turned his head and he noticed a woman with short, black hair and onyx eyes. She wore some type of torn and ripped, bluish-black kimono. He could make her own from the cavern lamps tied to the top of the walls. He stared at her with narrowed eyes as she opened the cell doors. As soon as the woman opened the door, she shivered. It seemed Ao hadn't been lying when he spoke of the strange things about the boy he brought back. Unknown to her, Naruto didn't miss that shiver. He watched her step inside and close the door. I'm Shizen. I'm a medic nin that's been taking care of you for the past 6 days. I hope you understand the accommodations. We have to be safe in these dire times, she replied as she stood next to him. Naruto didn't reply. Instead, he continued to glare at this woman named Shizen. He could see a bit of her, but his vision was still very hazy. She seemed more like a walking blob to him more than a human being. However, once she got close, he started to see her more defining features. The woman named Shizen knelt next to him. She opened her medic box and pulled out some supplies. She decided not to tell just how terrified she was. Just being in this young man's presence made her feel the same unease she felt whenever she was close to either Raiga or Ranma-sama. Perhaps he was one of the people who could grant chakra to others. She could see why they restrained him. You know, you're lucky to be alive. Ao-sen found you passed out amongst a large group walking fly traps. It might be because you're an inheritor. You took 3 strikes from their tongues. Most would die from a simple peck or bite wound. Their saliva contains toxins which can cause hallucinations and numbness in minor cases. On the 3rd day you were spasming violently and coughing up some blood. Had we left you unattended, I think you'd have been paralyzed until you died or until they devoured you, or dragged you off somewhere, she said. While that information was slightly, very disturbing, it also made him very worried. He worried for Ayam and Kurenai. He had no idea what happened to them. He wouldn't be able to live with himself if he returned to Kosuka, Shino, and Tenten without them. Even more than that, what would he say for himself? He didn't know why, but the thought of losing them was utterly unbearable. If he lost them, why did he fear what he would do? If only he could get out of these bounds. He could knock out this doctor and find some way to escape the area. That said, he couldn't really feel anything right now. Perhaps he was paralyzed for a little while. We've dealt with a few of them before. They're a problem for this area. Your ability to talk will come back soon, and you'll be able to move more fluidly. Raiga-san and Ranmaru-sama have questions they want to ask you, especially since you're an inheritor like Ranmaru-sama is. I'm going to give you some more medicine, it's in short supply these days, but you're too important to die, she said as she pulled out a needle with a vial. Naruto's eyes narrowed, but he was too weak to move like he wanted. He couldn't do anything except glare at Shizen angrily as she pierced his shoulder with the needle. She then released the medicine into his body. She checked his temperature and his pulse before she wrote some things down and stood to her feet. Her open-toed heeled sandals clacked on the stone. She locked the cell doors and left Naruto alone. As Shizen passed the rows of guards standing in front of the prison, she sighed. Really, she wished someone would take her away from all this. This wasn't what she signed up for when she joined this community a year ago. Still, people needed her help and her master would have wanted her to help whoever she could. Tsunade-sama, Shizen thought as she rubbed her eyes. She exited what could be considered the prison area and entered the main hallway that led to other areas of the underground structure. This had been an underground bunker used during the time of the Second Great Shinobi War. An entire community of civilians and warriors populated the area. Very warriors, named apostles by Raiga, patrolled the hallways. There were the men and women who proved themselves to Ranmaru-sama, being allowed access to their chakra for the utilization of ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, and even some medical ninjutsu. Yes, even Shizen was one. She had to be to heal the people around her. She was the only experienced medic nin in the community. Certainly being trained by the best medic in the elemental nations didn't hurt her qualifications. Don't mistake Shizen. She didn't hold the title with any type of pride. If nothing else, it was a silent curse, one that she hated. After passing by the personal guards, she knocked on the door. Enter, a voice called. Shizen opened the door and walked through. She frowned when she saw Raiga sitting in his chair, a woman on his lap with a bottle of booze that she'd rather not name. The medic nin also saw the unpleasant expression on Ranmaru-sama's bodyguard. There always seemed to be a new woman on the man's lap, and another one missing. Shizen-san. Just the one I was hoping to see. How is he? Raiga asked. Shizen bowed. Well, he's awake. He's definitely an inheritor like Ranmaru-sama. We've flushed most of the toxin out of his system, and he's still restrained to the cells. It'll probably be 2 or 3 days before he can talk again. What would you like to do? She asked. The man named Raiga frowned as the woman on his lap toyed with his green bangs on the side of his face. Simple, I'll talk to him. He can either join our community, or die. If the others learn there's someone here who can supply chakra aside from Ranmaru, then there shall be a great fallout, Raiga replied. We put a few good supplies of medicine into him to keep him alive. I don't think the return investment would be good if we just killed him, Shizen returned. She didn't want to say it, but the young prisoner had a much more refined and commanding presence than that of Ranmaru. It also seemed, based on Ao's reports, that his command of jutsu was as spectacular as what any Kage could do. At best, Ranmaru's command of jutsu wasn't too impressive. However, his ability to use it whenever he wanted, and pass it to others, was why he was so important. No wonder the young man had some eccentric followers under the command of Raiga. Raiga frowned. You find fault in my decision? I understand that you're a medic, but these are your people. Your obligation is to them, he said. Shizen glared. I don't need you to remind me of what my obligations are. I'm just telling you of the prisoner's health. Take that as what you will. I think you should just be mindful of what wasting medicine on the dead is, she returned. The green-haired man nodded. Rest assured. He has his uses even if he refuses. Ranmaru might not be of age yet, but our prisoner seems to be just fine, don't you think? Raiga asked. Shizen frowned. You don't want to know what I think. Good day, Kurasuki-san, she answered before she turned around and walked away. She opened the door and closed it while Raiga chuckled. She wants me, you know, he said while the woman on his lap chuckled. Not as much as I do, she answered. Yeah, well, should that brat refuse, you'll probably want him a lot more, the guard of Ranmura said. The woman's lips curved upwards. She wasn't going to complain. She doubted some of her friends would either. The woman then laughed as she drank from her bottle and kissed Raiga's lips. He reciprocated. Meanwhile, far away in a broken-down shop about 2 or 3 miles away from Kyuubigoku, Kurenai sighed as she pulled up a fallen door over the entrance to her and Iam's home. She slipped through and placed it back as she heard the distinct howl of the wind outside. When she came inside, she noticed Iam, still in the corner, her head in her hands. Ever since they'd managed to get away from Kyuubigoku and the creatures that followed them, the former ramen waitress had been like this. No matter what Kurenai tried, the only thing she got out of Iam was her disdain for the former jonin. To be honest, the genjutsu mistress couldn't argue that she didn't deserve it. She hoped Naruto would find them by honing in on the minimal amount of weaponized chakra that they did hold. Unfortunately, the days turned longer and longer until both began to fear the worst. Nights for Iam were unbearable. She refused to go to sleep and the bags under her eyes showed that. When the girl tried to go to sleep, she'd end up screaming not even half an hour later. They couldn't even unseal the food and supplies in their scrolls. All they could do was take shifts going outside to the ruins of Kyuubigoku and search for what they could. It wasn't a lot. Kurenai feasted on some stale crackers and sighed. You should eat, Iam, the black-haired woman said. Iam didn't reply. She continued to sit in her corner, her legs hunched together like a statue. Iam. Can you just shut up, Kurenai-san? I don't feel like eating, Iam answered in a raspy voice filled with sorrow. The older woman sighed as she heard some sand and dust beat against their door. The wood beneath their feet shook and creaked irritably. The two settled into silence, and Kurenai pinched the bridge of her nose. You'll be too tired to travel if you don't eat, she tried. Who says I even want to? You should just leave me here like you left Naruto-kun, Iam said, and Kurenai stiffened. Perhaps it was the days of going hungry or having no sleep, but the genjutsu mistress slammed the box of stale snacks on the floor. I didn't leave Naruto-kun. He wanted us to escape. What the hell could we have done except get in his way? Kurenai asked. Then what the hell were we even training for? Naruto-kun would have returned by now. Maybe we should all have just stayed on the island if we were going to run away when things got tough. You're a goddamn jonin. You should be capable of handling situations like this. Iam snarled. Kurenai's frown deepened. She shivered with anger. And what would you have liked me to do? Make myself feel worse about fighting in a confined space with Naruto-kun protecting me, knowing full well the whole building could collapse on top of us? We were helping Naruto-kun by. Help? What the hell do you know of help? I bet you just wanted Naruto-kun gone. You and everyone else isolated him back at the fire capital. You all in Konoha hated him despite the fact that all he did was try to live his life. When was the last time you ever cared enough to help him? Now he's gone. What if he doesn't come back? I didn't help him. I never even got to tell him. I love him, Iam said, which made Kurenai widen her eyes. She stared at her friend before the jonin felt rather vulnerable as well. I guess that's one thing we have in common today, Kurenai said. Now that revelation got Iam to look up in surprise. She saw the blush on Kurenai's face. The latter scratched her cheek and chuckled. You? Iam asked. The former jonin cleared her throat. He's filled out as he's grown up. I believe I've had 2 years to get over the shame, she answered. Iam should have been jealous. Hell, she should have been angry at this revelation, but she found herself rather intrigued. Then again, it did make sense. She'd seen Kurenai taking long glances at Naruto when she thought no one was looking. Their training had quite a bit of close body contact. What about you? Kurenai asked. Iam chuckled when she stared off into the distance outside the window. Naruto-kun was always someone special to me, but I always thought of him as just a little brother. The little brother who paid for my and my dad's food. However, maybe it was all those times sleeping together and the morning embarrassments, but I grew to love him. I'll admit it was a little romantic when he saved me back in the Chunin exam stadium. It was like something out of a romance novel. I thought that maybe it was just because there were only 2 others to compare him to, and one of the others was taken, but I think I knew long ago that wasn't it. I feel safe in his arms. I enjoy his smile in this fucked up world. I feel his leadership and his concern for all of us. I can't say I've felt this way about any of my former boyfriends, I answered. Kurenai sighed. She thought of Asuma for a moment. Agreed. Both fell into silence. So, what do we do now? I asked. Kurenai shrugged. I honestly have no idea. Without Naruto, we can't unseal the masks from the scrolls. The boat is near those tar pits, and who knows how those have changed in that time. We also don't know if more of those things are out there. We also don't know if Naruto-kun is. The Jonin didn't want to finish. He's alive! Naruto-kun wouldn't die on us. I know he wouldn't. I feel it. I asserted. Yeah, I suppose not, but that still doesn't change our position. If we say Naruto-kun's alive, then we don't know where he is, the red-eyed woman said. I frowned and thought for a moment. What about that group we met from before? Maybe one of them took him? She questioned while Kurenai sighed. It's possible, but we don't know the situation if they did. Assuming they took him by force, that means they have someone who can match Naruto-kun. I hoped we wouldn't have to use these, but it seems we might, the black-haired woman said while I nodded. While on the island, the group of 6 had plenty of time to research the types of creatures which populated its forests. Kosuke and Kurenai taught the other 4 about the special types of poisons made. Since they couldn't use chakra, this was to be a shinobi's best friend, the art of silent assassination. Never thought we'd use these on a human, but if it's to save Naruto-kun, then I'll gladly do it. But how do we? I stopped her sentence and touched her head. Perhaps it was the lack of sleep, but she felt the beginnings of a small headache. She massaged her head a few times and tried to steady her breathing. Are you all right? Kurenai asked. I think so. It's probably just a headache. I widened her eyes. It was small, but she could see a greenish outline around Kurenai's form. What the I thought. She stood up and walked over to her friend. She touched the former Jonin's shoulder. Her hand passed through the green outline. The former ramen waitress then stared at the floor. It was odd. She could see some kind of tether between herself and Kurenai. However, there was another tether that led out of the house and way into the vast void of nothingness. Kurenai-san, can you see this? I asked, pointing at the ground. Her friends looked down at the broken floorboard, confused. See what? Kurenai asked. So, the Genjutsu mistress couldn't see it. The only question was what the hell was it? I didn't think herself to be going insane. Never mind. I thought I saw a bug, the brown-haired girl answered back. She stared at the green outline, sailing off into the distance. Maybe she was tired, but, without Naruto, could she even fall asleep? As the harsh wind blew over the wasteland that was the elemental nations, 2 days passed by slowly for Naruto. The woman, Shizen, had made several trips to his cell. As she said, his ability to walk had returned. His ability to speak came back as well. However, the green chakra within him had not. It remained dormant for as long as he called it. He wondered if she had put some kind of chakra-restricting fluid inside him through the medicine. It was probably done to ensure he wasn't a threat. Either way, he didn't like it. He wished he had a way to contact Ayam and Kurenai if they were even alive. However, he'd need to find some way to get out of here first. If only he could access his chakra, then he'd be able to break out without issue. Of course, his hands were still bound. That was the annoying part. Suddenly, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki's ears perked up. He heard the sound of a door opening. He then heard footsteps. 2 of them. One with larger chakra than the other. One of the signatures he recognized. It was that doctor woman again, Shizen. The door to enter the room where his cell was opened. He watched the familiar medic Nin come through the door along with a man that made his already distrustful gaze even more prominent. The man held up a candle lamp and the flames revealed the blonde's appearance. As soon as their eyes met, Naruto saw the green-haired man take a step back. The man then chuckled and cleared his throat. A strong gaze. One that even made me shiver. It's been a long time since I've felt such a gaze since we've come upon these wastelands we call the elemental nations. ICAO's reports were true. You are indeed an inheritor, the man said, but Naruto didn't respond. Instead, his gaze hardened. They might think he missed it, but Naruto saw a bead of sweat fall down their faces. If he could, he would have smiled in triumph, but that'd give them something they needed. He wasn't about to give these fuckers anything. The man frowned before he stood in front of the cell bars. Now. Don't be like that. We did save your life after all. I think that deserves some pleasantries, right? Surely you understand the need to be careful when someone could turn into those creatures on the surface. So, how about we start off on the right foot? The name's Raiga Kurasuki. What's yours? He asked. Naruto continued to glare at both Shizen and the man named Raiga. The two stared at each other. You told me the poison would allow him to talk after 2 days, Raiga said. The dark-haired medic looked at her notepad. I'm sure he can. Judging by the focus in his gaze, I'm sure he can walk, talk, and act fine. I don't believe he wishes to converse with us, she answered. Raiga scowled and turned to the blonde Uzumaki. He unlocked the cell doors. He walked inside and knelt in front of the young teen. Now you listen to me. We've been very accommodating and even shared our medicine supplies with you. We've already got sick people here, but we gave some to a complete stranger. I assume you'd feel some type of gratitude from that, Raiga exclaimed. Still, the leader of the Konoha group said nothing. He just continued to look at the two almost as if he'd incinerate them where they stood if he could. He, ha 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 ha, Raiga chuckled and laughed before he grabbed a fistful of Naruto's hair and held a kunai to his throat. You listen to me. I can either make things real easy or real fucking difficult for you. Let's try this one more time. You'd better get it right this time. My name is Raiga. Pleased to meet you. What is your name? He asked with a heated glare as he pressed the kunai against Naruto's skin. Suddenly, Naruto's lips curved upwards. Chapter 12. Everything happened so fast. It happened so fast Shizen wasn't even given time to think. One moment, Raiga was threatening their captive, a kunai to the blonde's throat. The next moment, the underground base's second-in-command was down on the ground, unconscious with the blonde's hand wrapped around her throat. He pinned her to the wall with such strength that she almost thought she'd go unconscious before she could counter. Yet, the medic Nin couldn't counter. When she stared into his eyes, she felt the fear of her own death. She feared for her death at the hands of an inheritor of the wastelands. The weight of her own mortal consciousness made her inwardly submit to this being of immense, almost divine authority. She couldn't deny it, he was stronger than Ranmaru. Just his gaze made her squirm. She's never felt such strength since her master. She feared defying him, for he was, dare she say, a god just waiting for his time to take everything. That said, Shizen was still a jonin. She had her damn pride as well. To be captured by an enemy shinobi, much less a prisoner, was unacceptable. The black-haired woman quickly tried to summon whatever chakra she could, but she gasped when all the chakra she still had fizzled away. Don't bother, Naruto replied, his voice like a roll of thunder in the night sky. Shizen snarled and grabbed a kunai from her pouch beneath the hem of her kimono skirt. She quickly tried to stab the blonde, but she shivered when he blocked her strike. He didn't even look mad. He just looked annoyed. The kunai clacked on the ground. Shizen tried to reach for more, but the grip on her throat got stronger. Try again, there'll be no one that'll fix your broken arms, Naruto threatened. Shizen scowled, but she moved her hand away from her weapon's pouch. Once Naruto saw that, he slowly put her down. He then quickly transformed into Raiga right before the medic's eyes. I'm gonna adjust my voice. You'd better tell me if I've got it right. If you don't, then you'll have a lot more people to heal than just me, he said. Fearing for the life of her people in the settlement, Shizen nodded. So, Naruto carefully adjusted his voice until the medic Nin gave him the nod that he had Raiga's voice right. The transformed blonde nodded. Good. Now you're coming with me. Don't do anything stupid, he warned. Shizen then gasped when she felt something start controlling her. It felt like her chakra had been latched onto by some unknown force. It must have been the young man because he stared at her. When he raised his arm, she raised her arm as well. When he raised his foot, she raised her foot as well. Puppetry jutsu? Was he from Sunigakure? That was the village that had the most puppet users. Shizen had been to that village a few times before the world went to hell. Still, to even use such an advanced puppeteering jutsu showed the boy's prowess. It was a shame. On the one hand, the black-haired woman could understand Raiga's concerns, but learning of the man's plans for the boy, she couldn't fault his rebellion. He would have been a massive help to their settlement. Now, it was all on her to make sure the place still stood until the young man left. You know he'll wake up eventually, and you'll be surrounded, she said. I don't think you've got the time to worry about others. You just focus on getting me out of here and I'll make sure your work as a medic doesn't get harder, Naruto replied as he tied up Raiga and gagged him. Once that was done, he stood up. Where do you live down here? You're gonna take me there. Don't try to be smart and alert anyone. If I feel you're deviating, then I'll kill you and find my own way out. Got it? He asked. Shizen swallowed. She had a feeling he could do it too. Fine. I live on the second floor of the settlement. It leads deeper into the underground base structure, she replied. Naruto narrowed his eyes, but he nodded. He locked the cell door and took the keys with him. He and Shizen then opened the cell doors and walked outside the prison room. The disguised young man and his captive walked through the long, dim hallways of Cavern Rock. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki noticed a row of about 10 guards, 5 on each side guarding the prison. Wow, such prestigious security. All of it for him, they shouldn't have. Naruto frowned when he thought he saw someone looking at him, but when he turned his head the guards were still staring forward. That said, the blonde noticed one of the guards slowly reaching for his kunai pouch. The young man frowned. It seemed Raiga was cleverer than the blonde thought. You'd better start running, Naruto told Shizen. She looked at him weirdly. It seems I've been spotted already, he said through Raiga's voice as they walked out of the prison tunnel and down a corridor that led into the settlement's underground housing structures. Shizen feared the worst as their steps echoed through the halls. I didn't, she started to say while he tightened her arm. Shut up. I know it wasn't you, Databeo. I guess your friend from earlier told one of the guards he was going to do something specific when he left the prison. Clearly, I didn't do anything and only one of them reached for their kunai. It probably won't be long until… Naruto and Shizen paused when the settlement suddenly rang loud with the sound of alarms. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki scowled as the halls filled with metallic walls echoed the noise. He quickly disguised himself in what he'd assume a medic nin would wear. He then grabbed the female medic's arm and dragged her with him. If you see anyone, talk some medic shit to me, he said with a growl while she nodded. As the two entered a hallway with multiple entrances, the blonde didn't have the time to marvel at them all. Instead, Shizen led him to one of the left tunnels that led deeper into the underground shelters. They then took about 4 or 5, the blonde lost count, turns through more hallways. Each seemed more mechanical than the last. Some chakra to his ears, Naruto heard people coming. He frowned. Start talking, he said. Shizen pulled out her notepad. Yes, I was assuming that as well. We'll need to prescribe the daily recommended dose of medication to the patient. What do you think? She asked, handing Naruto a blank notepad. Yeah, that makes sense. We should. Hey, you two! Someone shouted. Naruto and Shizen closed the notebook. They then looked up and the blonde saw a squad of about 5 men, each of them dressed in what he assumed was some type of shinobi attire. Judging by the attire, it must have been sewn together thanks to anyone working fabric when they were a civilian. The attire didn't look new. It was just made from torn parts. Anyway, they each took out a set of kunai. Though anxious, Naruto held his nerve. Both of you get to your rooms and close the doors. The settlement is in lockdown. If either of you sees Raiga-sama, then don't engage. We've reason to believe he might not be it. Move now. All unauthorized personnel outside their homes in the next 10 minutes will be detained. the obvious leader said before he ran past them. Shizen couldn't believe this was happening right now. The people who were meant to guard the place just ran past the person in question. The medic couldn't believe this. Please stop this. Think about the people who will get hurt because of you, she responded. Naruto frowned. You people knew what you signed up for when you joined this settlement of yours. Besides, I didn't want to come here. You can blame your friend Ao for this. He snarled. Of course, the blonde didn't want to cause any discourse with anyone. However, he didn't owe the people here anything. He had his own loved ones waiting for him to get back. That said, he couldn't help feeling like he brought himself here for a reason. Something in the back of his mind told him there was something here for him. The reason he'd allowed himself to pass out was for something here. Or maybe his head was just messing with him. That was possible also. Either way, the two didn't spend too much of their time there anymore. Shizen, very reluctantly, led Naruto to the most open area. The young man was then treated to what he could only surmise to be some massive underground, metal city lying throughout the underground sea of stone. He heard the workings of complicated machinery and felt the heat from below the ground. He also noticed a ton of staircases leading to the upper and lower floors of this settlement. There seemed to be a few homes and even some stalls. People were selling broken kunai, shuriken, a few scrolls, but everyone was in a panic to quickly get into their homes. The blonde gasped. How had all this come about in only 2 years? How long would all of this take if his group worked on it? Unfortunately, Naruto couldn't stay on it for long. He saw a few shinobi running along the open walls of the underground fortress area. Some of them even had grappling hooks, helping them scale the walls and land on top of roofs. Which way? Naruto asked. Shizen sighed and pointed further down the hole. There was a lone steel house far in the corner. Over there, she replied. Attention, all settlers, please remain in your homes. Any people found outside in 2 minutes will be detained. This is your final warning. Naruto stiffened. Was that an alarm system megaphone? Hell, if these people hadn't kidnapped him, perhaps Naruto would have thought to have his team become part of this community. They clearly had all the right stuff. That said, he couldn't be excited, especially not now. Shizen quickly led him down a series of metal steps and in no time, they were walking across a metal platform. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki stared over the railing at the orange hue of some kind of hot earth far beneath the settlement. He also saw some type of building that led down into that area. Well, it wasn't his concern. The two arrived at the medic Nin's house. She opened the door and guided him inside. Naruto dropped the transformation and surveyed the room. It wasn't very big at all. A living room with one sleeping bag for a bed. Well, not that he was surprised. Ever since the meteor hit, there wasn't much to do for a comfortable life in times like this. Once they were inside, Shizen locked her door and while Naruto sat on the floor and sighed. Both watched Shinobi run through the steel areas. The former closed the blinds to her house. Alright, you've perfectly invaded my house. What now? She asked with a bit of test in her voice. Naruto looked at her and then frowned. Well, I'll need to get my stuff back that you guys stole from me. Look, once I get my stuff and you lead me to the exit, then I'll just hope we never see each other again. Besides, considering you guys stabbed me with needles that could likely have contained anything malicious, I'd say I'm being pretty generous, he fired back. Shizen snorted. You're a saint, she remarked. So you gonna tell me where my backpack is? He asked. So you can rob us of the rest of our stuff? She asked. Naruto's eyebrow twitched. You mean to steal the stuff that was already mine back? Yes, he exclaimed. The female medic opened her mouth and then closed it. She supposed it wasn't impossible to see the blonde's point in all of this. The two stayed in silence for a moment. That silence didn't last for very long before a rapid series of knocks came to the door. Naruto tensed, and so did Shizen. The former still had control of that latter. She couldn't open the door and warn someone if he didn't let her. The whiskered man got up and hid behind the door. He told her to open it. She swallowed and unlocked the hatch. Yo, Shizen. I'll make this brief. I need you to come with me. We found Raiga-sama locked up in the prison cells. He said you were the last person to see the prisoner before they got away. We just want to ask you some questions. Naruto heard a man's voice on the other side. He cursed. All he had was the kunai he stole from Raiga back in the prison cells. Well, that was all he had without drawing attention to himself. Anyone would notice the flare of chakra if he used it, especially at this type of range. Shizen sighed. Alright, just let me grab some things. She moved her eyes to the right. The person behind the door raised an eyebrow before some type of realization was made. It became a little obvious when she did it after the 6th time. Right. Well, Raiga-sama can wait. Can I help? The man asked. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Well, there wasn't much point anymore. The blonde lunged from behind the door and grabbed Shizen. She gasped when he pressed the kunai to her throat. The man cursed and grabbed his own kunai. Now that's not nice, Shizen-san. I was being nice and I told you I didn't want any problems with any of you. You're lucky. I don't. Naruto's words slowly died in his throat. He widened his eyes when he stared at the man in front of him. Even as the man glared at him, he couldn't mistake that seemingly lazy-like drawl in his eye. His single visible eye just like that AO guy from before. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki also couldn't mistake that spiky, silverish gray hair. For so long, the disguised blonde always wondered if anyone else from Konoha survived. It seemed that was indeed the case. Kakashi-sensei? Naruto asked, which got the man to widen his eye. Even Shizen stilled when she heard the words that came from the prisoner's lips. I sighed as she picked up an empty can. She sucked her teeth and threw it away, its metallic body clanking in the hot wind. She and Kurenai had been around the edges of Yudikure, or what was left of it. They were still deciding what to do not only about Naruto, but also about their situation. The former ramen waitress sighed. She never realized just how hard collecting things was without something to seal them in. Once again, she was reminded of just how much they relied on Naruto. That said, if they didn't find them, what would happen to their group? They had many important things sealed in scrolls back on Uzushio. If they couldn't find him, then most of their supplies were useless. Naruto-kun. thought to herself. She missed him. She missed him a lot. As she carefully walked up one of the broken stairs that led into a part of a house that had been torn in two, she thought about him. Moreover, she thought about what she and Kurenai discussed. They both loved Naruto. Surprisingly, didn't find herself put off on the idea of maybe sharing him. Now, don't misunderstand. She never shared any of her previous boyfriends. That was why she was weirded out by her acceptance of the idea. Not even with her closest former friend has she ever contemplated a polygamous relationship. She wanted to be the only special one in her loved one's heart. That said, she could just feel it, perhaps deep within her soul, her very body, that to share Naruto with Kurenai felt right. Don't ask her to explain why, but that was what she felt. Something primal within her urged that she not be concerned about such a thing. She was worthy and Kurenai was worthy. Yet, more than that, Naruto was worthy to have them both and no other. See? She thought she was insane. Yet, the idea was ever appealing to her. She knew what Naruto was like. She'd known him for the majority of his life. If there was anyone that would treat not just her, but Kurenai well, respect them, love them, and take care of them, it would be him. Unknown to the Ichiraku daughter, Kurenai had the same thoughts. While the Genjutsu mistress did enjoy certain fantasies, she'd never thought of putting them into practice. Yet, she also knew what Naruto and meant to each other. She also saw what Hinata saw in the young man. It didn't help that he proved to be so reliable, so strong, and so... Anyway, yes, Kurenai found herself dreaming of him many nights. Was she guilty? At first, yes. She was more guilty of her attraction to loving the young man that her now-deceased student liked. What would Hinata think when they met on the other side? Unfortunately, the black-haired woman had no answers to that. She just knew that her thoughts were genuine. Of course, at first, she thought it was just because she was sexually frustrated. 2 years without sex was a bit nerve-wracking. especially since she'd learned that Shino and Tenten were basically dating. That one came out of left field. She tried to instill in both the proper procedures of safe sex as an adult, but she wouldn't be surprised if they were active. Anyway, again, her student's sex life aside, she knew it wasn't merely a lust thing. It was something she felt she truly desired. To wake up with him next to her every day, surviving in this cold, cruel world. He was also easy on the eyes. Plus, watching him work with no shirt was it just made her feel a lot of ways. Don't judge her. All this being said, she just felt it was right to be with him, and I am, but definitely more with him. Karina had experimented a bit when she was younger, but in the end, she enjoyed a man in her life. Now, that man was gone and she had no idea where he was. If she found him, she wouldn't mind such a relationship then. At least she understood where she and I am stood. Anyway, Karina walked out of the building with a large pile of stuff. She wiped the sweat off her face. The wind had carried most of the sand off, leaving a rugged path of crushed rock and stone. Honestly, between the awkward steps, hot rocks, and blistering heat, she wondered if she preferred the sand from before. Well, she couldn't do anything about it. Karina noticed Ayam come before her. They both set down their stuff. Remember when we had Naruto-kun to just seal this stuff away? The latter asked. Yeah, the former replied when she saw her friend staring at the ground. Her eyes were hard and focused. The brown-haired girl then stared off into the distance. The former Jonin frowned. You still see something? The red-eyed woman asked, which got her young friend to jump. Ayam chuckled nervously. Why yes. It's some kind of faint green line. I see it between you and me also. What if it's something leading us to Naruto-kun? She questioned. Karina sighed. It wasn't that she didn't believe Ayam, but it certainly would have helped if she saw whatever this was herself. Of course, she wanted to go and follow up on the lead, but they had to be smart here. Without Naruto, they were basically defenseless. If he was captured, then that meant the other group was very powerful. What could they do against that? Still, Ayam had a point. If they were just going to act like this, then what was the point in them even coming with Naruto? They knew the dangers. They would just have to be careful. Tell you what, let's take this stuff back to the place we're staying at. We'll get up early in the morning tomorrow and investigate it, but since I can't see it, you'll have to guide us. This'll be a good time to practice your awareness. If it is Naruto-kun, then he'll need our help, Karina said. Ayam agreed. They quickly grabbed their things and continued back to their hideout. They just hoped that wherever Naruto was, if he was anywhere, that he would be alright until they arrived. Do we know each other? The one named Kakashi asked. He didn't know too many people who called him that. In fact, only 3 called him that. How long had it been since he heard those words? Far too long for someone like him. Naruto chuckled. More than you'd think, Databeo, he remarked. Kakashi's eye widened. No way. Reality couldn't be that cruel. Only one person had a speech pattern like that. The former Umbu captain recognized it from when Minato's wife, Kushina, used it. That could only mean this disguised person, holding Shizen hostage, was. The silver-haired settlement commander dropped his kunai in shock as Naruto dropped the transformation. Kakashi was graced with the sight of blonde hair, whisker-marked cheek, and bright blue eyes filled with a sense of relief, emotion, and hope. How ironic. The Jonin had long since given up hope after the years passed by. Why yo Kakashi-sensei, you look good, Naruto replied. Kakashi never thought of himself as an affectionate person. Hell, with the lifestyle he lived, he had sometimes run out of emotions to give, but he could spare a few now. Yeah, he could spare just a few. You look good as well, Naruto, the former Jonin sensei of Team 7 said, his voice threatening to crack with each second. Shizen stared between the two. For the 2 years since this hell had begun, she'd always known Kakashi as a bit of a loner. Ever before this apocalypse happened, he always kept to himself. If the former were a therapist, she would have classified him with extreme depression. He had sleepless nights, didn't eat much, worked himself so hard he fainted once. Over the years, and through the tidbits of information, she learned that the female genin of his cell had died in his arms in the very first week of the apocalypse. Apparently, they managed to get into cover, but then it started raining. Kakashi tried to warn her, but she was concerned for another of her teammates. She ran out to find him. Unfortunately, she never came back. Then, Kakashi found her bones and her dissolved skin mixing with the sand. Since then, Kakashi walked around aimlessly before he came to the settlement, his failure like a torn coat of arms. It seemed he blamed himself for her death, even though Shizen thought the young girl wasn't too smart to do that. That said, it was also a matter of circumstance. How long had it rained before she gave up waiting? Either way, Kakashi must have assumed the other two genin in his team had died. No doubt he must have thought he failed them as well. Now, one of them was apparently alive. Shizen would be happy for him if not for the fact that he still had a kunai at her throat, but that meant this young man was also from Konoha, her home village. Kakashi Taishu, have you found anything? Someone suddenly asked over a headset. Naruto, Shizen, and Kakashi stiffened from the shout and were quickly reminded of their situation. At the moment, the blonde still had the medic hostage. The one-eyed former Jonin looked at them both. He tapped his headset. No, move over to Sector F. Stand by for now. I'll search Shizen's residence. She couldn't have gotten far, he replied, much to the shock of the medic and the blonde. Kakashi then muted his mic and closed the door. I've bought us some time, and while it's really good to see you, Naruto, I'd like to ask that you let Shizen go. She's also from Konoha, Kakashi replied. Naruto widened his eyes before he looked at his hostage in shock. You're from Konoha too? He asked. Feeling the tension sort of dispersing from the room, Shizen nodded. Well, I was 2 years ago, she answered with a bit of a dry laugh despite the fact that Kakashi kinda just betrayed the settlement. Of course, she probably couldn't talk. Naruto removed his kunai from her throat and handed it back to her. While he didn't want to drop his guard, especially since he wasn't too sure where Kakashi's allegiance laid, but he hadn't ratted him out. That earned a few points for him. Shizen took the kunai and rubbed her throat. Meanwhile, Kakashi looked over his young genin. The blonde had clearly done much during his time. He had been told in one of the meetings that an inheritor, someone similar to Ranmura-sama, had been caught. The Jonin never got to see the person, but judging from how his former hyperactive knucklehead made him shiver at the moment, it had to be him. This devotion, and desire to respect the being in front of him, made it obvious. Shizen put the kunai on a counter before she watched Naruto just straight up hug his Jonin sensei. She blinked, and even Kakashi chuckled before he patted the blonde's head. The hug lasted a moment before Shizen cleared her throat. Not to interrupt your moment, but in case you've forgotten, Naruto-san's a wanted prisoner of the settlement. He also knocked out Raiga-sama. I don't think the settlement's gonna have a high opinion of him. What are we going to do? She asked. This was not a day the assistant to the legendary sucker wanted to have. Kakashi scratched his head. All the exits have been locked down. Only assigned personnel are to be outside. It doesn't help that the tunnels are unsafe recently, he responded. Naruto turned to Shizen. You're willing to help me now? He asked. Shizen sighed. This isn't how I assumed I'd meet a former countryman, but Kakashi seems to think the best of you. I only warn you that you not misplace my trust because Kakashi's just put his entire life on the line for you by lying to the settlement's shinobi. However, I'd also not like to see my own countrymen imprisoned. Back in the academy, we were taught about the will of fire. I think it will be a sad day when we start killing our own, she answered. Naruto slowly agreed before he turned back to Kakashi. I've got so much to tell you, Kakashi-sensei, but I know that will come later. Look, I already got a plan, he exclaimed. Already? Shizen asked. Naruto nodded. Yeah. Kakashi-sensei always said I should use my head more. It's how I've survived this long with my group, the blonde admitted. G-group? Kakashi asked. Shizen and Naruto noticed the stutter in his voice. The latter wondered what happened that left his normally nonchalant Jonin sensei so mixed up. However, they'd have to go over that for later. Yeah, now, Both of you, follow my lead, Naruto replied with a grin as the two former Konoha shinobi looked at him. Meanwhile, Raiga scowled as he threw a chair at the wall, causing it to break into pieces. Fuck, how could he be so stupid? How could he allow that inheritor to escape? He could be anywhere at this point, hiding amongst the dregs of the settlement. What if he escaped already? Shit, he didn't want to send out men to find one person, especially not with how the situation was with the settlement. It seemed it was as Raiga thought. Different inheritors had different abilities. Somehow that young man, when he got close enough, sucked all the chakra from his body. That rapid loss of chakra almost put him in a state of cardiac arrest. Now, he was thankful he had set up that countermeasure just in case things went south. As the green-haired man and the medic made their way to the prison, he pulled one of the guards to the side. He said that if he didn't tell the guard he'd be eating a spicy chicken sandwich for dinner, then the guard must sound the alarm. It seemed he'd shown some good hindsight in that. When Raiga was located, he'd been helped back to his quarters on the first level. When he'd woken up, he asked what happened to Shizen. He was told that the guards saw the inheritor leading the woman by the arm away from the area. It probably meant that the inheritor kidnapped her. He didn't think Shizen would be one to talk, but he couldn't be sure. He already knew she didn't have a high opinion of him, but she always put the people of the settlement first. She had a bleeding heart. Oddly needed for a medic. That said, that kept it easy to keep her in line. As Raiga crunched on some sweet grass, there came a knock on the door. Raiga-sama, Kakashi Taishu has returned. He's secured the prisoner, someone said from behind the door. Kurisuke's frown suddenly turned into a large smirk. Finally, some good news. Good. Send them in, he replied. The door opened and the second in command of the underground settlement noticed the former Konoha Anbu come through the door with the blonde inheritor and Shizen. Ah, how could Raiga doubt one of the most powerful shinobi to come out of Konoha? To the man was definitely a lucky find for the settlement. Actually, when he was a Kyuubi, Raiga had faced Kakashi a few times. He knew what the man was capable of. Glad to see you haven't lost your touch, Kakashi. I told you a person like you couldn't be stuck guarding the settlement. You've caught our little rebel, Raiga praised as he looked at the scowl on Naruto's face. I appreciate the praise, Raiga-sama, but I didn't capture him. He gave up when he saw me. He said he'd surrender if he got a chance to speak to you, Kakashi said. The smile on Raiga's face fell. The inheritor gave up against Kakashi? Well, maybe the man's prestige scared him, but an inheritor becoming scared of a non-inheritor? That sounded like a bad dream. Is that right? Well, it's good to see you're all right, Shizen, he replied, his eyes turning to her. Shizen frowned. Indeed, she replied, trying to keep the snarl off her tone. Seeing this, Raiga turned back to the blonde, whose arms were still held by Kakashi. The silver-haired jonin pushed the inheritor in front of him. Harder to escape than you thought, isn't it? Face it. You might be an inheritor, but I've been Ranma's guard before all of this happened. You have a long way to go before you can outmaneuver me. Now then, how are you gonna beg for my forgiveness? Raiga asked. Naruto raised an eyebrow before he laughed. Don't delude yourself. I stayed because I found someone important to me. Look, you want me? You got me. I'm just happy I got to see Kakashi-sensei again. I'm not gonna do anything that'd put him in danger, the blonde said. Raiga had to admit, it was a little weird to hear the young man talk. He'd been basically mute for the entire time he'd been here. However, he was even more amazed that the copy ninja was his teacher. That meant this young man was also from Konoha. Shizen had told him the village was destroyed when she returned. It was possible this young man had left before she checked a year ago. Though this piece of fortune made Raiga happy, he held the smile from his face. Is that right? And how would I know he's your sensei? You could be lying. Kakashi-sen was a very well-known shinobi back in the age of shinobi, he answered. Naruto smirked. Does he still read a certain orange-colored book? Does he show up about an hour or two late for meetings? Did he once tell you that a black cat crossed his path and he had to walk the whole way around the settlement to avoid bad luck? The blonde asked. Shizen glared at the jonin who chuckled as he scratched his cheek. Indeed, He had done a lot of those things. Neither she nor Raiga could deny that. Okay, I believe you a bit more now, he replied. Kakashi chuckled nervously. I'm not that bad, he replied. Shizen and Raiga glared harder. The silver-haired Jonin decided that maybe it was better if he kept his mouth shut. Raiga leaned back. Well, I can't deny your skills as an inheritor since you managed to escape, if only briefly. Alright, let's say I show some leniency on you for what you've done. I know you didn't survive on your own. Ao told me about those 2 women you were with. Where are they? He asked. Raiga shivered when he felt Naruto's harsh glare on him. I'll get them, but if you touch them then I'll make you wish I did escape. You understand me? Naruto asked with a dangerous tone in his voice. Surprisingly, Raiga found himself nodding, snarling at his own submissiveness to the strength of this foreign inheritor. TCH, I've got to get a fucking hold of myself, Raiga thought before he cleared his throat. No harm will come to them, but don't expect trust anytime soon. Since you're familiar with the copy ninja, then you'll be his responsibility. Kakashi, the brat's gonna stay with you. I think you know the consequences of causing trouble in our settlement, the former Kyuubi warned. Kakashi quickly nodded. I understand, he said. Raiga turned to Naruto. Can you go get them now? He asked. The blonde wiggled his bonds. What's the rush? He asked. The older man's frown deepened. Well, aside from them being out in the vast wasteland where any of the mutated creatures can pick them off, I'd rather your 2 friends not do anything stupid and try some stupid rescue attempt. Unless they abandoned you already, Raiga said before everyone felt the settlement shake violently. Naruto's eyes glowed green. Don't push it. They wouldn't abandon me, the Uzumaki heir pushed back. The rumbling stopped. Raiga clenched his fists. Whether this was done to keep himself from quivering or to control his own anger, wasn't known. Either way, he wanted this conversation to end because he was close to lashing out. That wouldn't help him. He knew that. Kakashi, assemble a team of 5 men. The inheritor's gonna take you to his group. Lead them back here. Whether you know them or not, we don't. They'll be checked, and once we ascertain them to not be threats, then they shall be allowed entry, he answered. Naruto nodded. Fine, but I'm gonna be in the room with them when they get checked. It's not that I don't trust your men, but I really don't trust them, the blonde answered back. The green-haired man snarled, but he waved off the blonde's request. He was pissed off enough. He didn't want to get any more pissed off than he already was. He just stood to his feet and walked out the door. Naruto turned to Kakashi and Shizen. He smirked at both of them. They just looked at him in surprise. Well, looks like we'd better get you back to your friends, right? Kakashi asked. The blonde nodded. Yeah, he replied before his gaze focused on Shizen. Now, can I have my stuff back? The medic rolled her eyes before she guided the former prisoner out one of the steel doors. Kakashi unbound Naruto as the alarm slowly came to a close. People were quickly allowed to resume their active duties. As they made their way to the supply building, Naruto saw the hundreds of people walking across the steel steps to other parts of the settlement. He even noticed some people praying together. Hey, those guys. Who are they praying to? Naruto asked. Shizen and Kakashi saw them. Both sighed. People are looking for hope no matter where they might find it. They are praying to Ranmura-sama, even though he asks that they not. You'd heard that you're called an inheritor, right? The former asked. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki nodded. Inheritor was a term that came to float around the world through the violent, neutral, and peaceful settlements of the remnants of the nations. Inheritors are people who can give other people chakra. Before the fallout, everyone had chakra and their bodies could naturally replenish it. As you remember, Naruto, chakra is a combination of physical energy and spiritual energy, right? Kakashi asked. He nodded again. Kakashi continued. After the fallout, something corrupted the bodies of people, animals, plants, and the very earth itself. No one knows, but everyone only has the bare minimum amount of chakra needed to keep them alive. Even if it were possible to weaponize such a small amount, the user would most likely die after the first jutsu. However, inheritors started showing up people who could not only use chakra, but also grant it to others. They're called inheritors because they are believed to have inherited the will of the meteor, and they shall fight for supremacy over who shall inherit the world and lead the world out of this desolate age, he finished. Naruto stilled. He could give chakra to others? He could give Kurenai her genjutsu prowess back, Tenten could go gaga over her weapon skills, and Shino could finally bring his insects out of hibernation. How had he never thought of that? Okay, so we can give chakra to others. I get that makes us pretty damn important, but that doesn't explain why they're praying to him, he replied. Kakashi shrugged. Some think the inheritors always had this power, and the meteor was just a sign from Kami that she would be collecting her select children soon. They think Ranmaru is one of them, the one who shall lead them to divinity, he answered. Naruto's mouth thinned. He wasn't even sure what he was supposed to say to that. That said, Shizen cautioned him. That's why we'll ask that you not show what you can do easily. If news of your inheritor status shows up, you'll worry I'll bring people from your settlement to my side. I got it. Well, I wouldn't want them worshipping me anyway, the young Uzumaki replied. Yet, deep within the recesses of his mind, the idea did sound appealing. He didn't voice this, though. After some time navigating the halls, the trio arrived at the storeroom, which was guarded by 3 men. Once their identities were verified, the door was opened. Inside, Naruto saw numerous stockpiles of food, water, walkie-talkies, kunai and shuriken sets, and plenty of other weapon types. Clearly, this settlement had been busy in the 2 years his group had been on the island. Do you remember what your backpack looks like? We use a lot of them, Shizen said. Naruto looked around the long room before he found his bag. He grabbed it from a metal hanger and opened it up. He smirked when he saw everything was there, green-tipped scrolls and all. Clearly, they hadn't taken the time to go through his inventory. All right, let's go, Kakashi-sensei, the Uzumaki heir said. The blonde's former sensei nodded as he grabbed some of his own supplies. When they walked out, Kakashi wrote on a notepad of 1 backpack's worth of supplies to be taken out of the storage room. Even Shizen took one. You're coming? Kakashi asked. If they are hurt, then they will need medical attention. No one in the settlement is too injured that they will need me for the next 2 to 3 hours to get to Yugakure, she answered. The silver-haired Jonin shrugged before he spent some time finding 3 other men to accompany them. In the end, it was 2 men and 1 woman that Naruto didn't recognize, but that didn't matter to him. They all walked up a long flight of stairs which led to an upper surface base. Rock turned into built stone, broken walls, shattered desks, and cracked windows. Sand and splintered wood leaked through some of the windows while what sounded like water from broken pipes dripped in the distance. The group continued onward. They reached the top where 2 men guarded the entrance. They opened the doors. May the sands keep your path dry, one of them said. May the winds blow you home, one of the men from the group said. They pounded their fists into their chests. The group walked outside and for once, Naruto squinted his eyes. He noticed that where he was wasn't like an oasis in a large desert. Plenty of deformed trees with razor-sharp leaves stood tall. Some type of greenish-purple grass laid at their feet surrounded by dirt. All right, Yugakure is to the east. We'll get there quickly, Kakashi said. Everyone agreed. The run towards Yugakure wasn't anything spectacular. The journey took longer than anyone could have thought. A heavy storm brewed over the putrid green clouded sky. Hundreds of purple lightning bolts rolled across the barren sky. It seemed like it wouldn't be long before it started raining. That alone made everyone fearful. Rain was not a good sign. Having to guess between it being acid and regular water was never fun. Thankfully, Kami seemed to bless them during the run. The rain didn't fall, but there was a lot of wind, carrying with it a lot of bones and disgusting debris. As usual, in the distance, there were 1 or 2 tornadoes taking up sand and gravel. They all shivered when they heard a screech in the distance. No doubt something far into the horizon wasn't pleased by the weather change. It also didn't help when they all heard another roar. No one in the group spoke during this time. Naruto tried contacting Kurenai and IM over the headset, but he didn't hear anything. It made him a little worried. He figured it was just because of the storm disrupting the signal. Hell, he hoped it was just that and nothing else. After a brief 30-minute break, the group finally made it back to KyuubiGoku. Naruto sighed as he looked at the ruins of the village hidden in hot water. Over the days, it seemed the village had indeed fallen to more ruin than before. From the assault last time, a lot of buildings had toppled over. Some crashed into each other, making oddly beautiful, if grim, archways. Most had fallen to the ground, slowly beginning to become covered in sand. Anyone here ever think, maybe one day everything will become like this? Just an endless sea of sand, storms, and creatures? Nothing made by humans will be left? Someone asked. That was something Kakashi and Shizen didn't wish to think about as of late. To be honest, Naruto didn't either. He'd had enough to think about aside from that. Alright, Naruto. Do you know where they are? Kakashi asked. The blonde sighed and channeled the green chakra into his eyes. He stared over the area. Unlike last night when he faced the tongue lashers, the area wasn't covered in green chakra. They must have dispersed with the storm from a few days ago. If that was the case, then he was able to hone in on Kurenai and Ayam. He'd done it before. Yeah, 3 miles to the north of the village, he replied. Kakashi nodded. Very well. Then just as we planned, we'll wait a few feet away. The worst thing right now would be to frighten them and make a hasty decision. Once you've explained the situation to them, we'll quickly head back to the settlement. I hope we can hurry. It looks like we're in for a rough storm, the one-eyed Jonin said as he looked over graying clouds. The blonde inheritor agreed. Right, he responded. The group ran off. The journey wasn't as long as Naruto hoped. In no time, he found himself alone. Kakashi, Shizen, and their group had broken off to wait for him to return. Meanwhile, he jumped over a hill and appeared in front of the door. At this point, there was no way he could do this without it being awkward. Well, actually, maybe that wasn't true. Naruto touched the walls of the store Ayam and Kurenai were in. He spread his chakra over it, hoping to convey to them both that not only was he alive, but that he was outside and just waiting to receive them. Thankfully, that was exactly what happened. He heard something crash inside the store. Over the 2 years, Kurenai and Ayam had numerous chakra to get used to the blonde's chakra. There was no way they would mistake its feeling. Before Naruto could even say hello, he gasped as Ayam crashed into him. He fell back into the sand. And Naruto-kun! Naruto-kun! Thank God you're alive! She cried as she clutched his chest. Before the blonde could even reply to her sobs, the instant he opened his mouth, he gasped as Ayam kissed him. The feeling of her lips against his own made him soar like nothing he'd ever felt before. She wrapped her arms around his neck while her body leaned into his own like a missing puzzle piece. Also, was that her tongue? He felt something pleasant wrapping around the corners of his lips. Though surprised, Naruto found his hands rubbing Ayam's body. She sighed, her sadness, worries, and happiness mixing together like a pot of boiling ingredients ready to burst. She rubbed her hands on his chest, his wide, muscular chest. She didn't know why she was being this forward, but she just wanted to kiss him. She wanted to partake of him like he was her last desert on this desolate planet. When she kissed him, it felt like her entire soul was burning, the years of silent need for him exploding all at once. So much frustration and unsatisfied needs flourished through her. This was the type of kiss she read in romance novels. Her body was hopelessly on fire, fueled by this need, this desire, this fulfillment to be a part of something that would rule the edges of the world. Finally, both separated. Their eyes seemed glossed by their sudden affection for each other. Their cheeks were undeniably flushed, and their mouths breathless. Wow, Naruto said while Ayam panted. Why yeah, she replied as Naruto rubbed the side of her eyes. Suddenly, both became aware that they had someone watching them. They noticed Kurenai looking at them. Ayam noticed her friend didn't look shocked or angry. If anything, she looked amused. Maybe you should disappear more often, Kurenai said. Naruto chuckled, a little shocked at these developments. He had no idea Ayam felt this way about him. Of course, he couldn't say he thought differently. He definitely thought about her in this manner as well. He wouldn't deny that, but he also couldn't deny the way Kurenai looked at them. The welcome a pleasant feeling to all of them, Kurenai and Ayam brought Naruto inside. Once they did, he quickly unsealed their food and water. He then decided to waste no time. He told them what happened to him after Yugakure, and where he'd been. He told them the most important information first. Kakashi-sensei's alive, he said. Ayam and Kurenai widened their eyes. Both had heard of the man before. He'd been around to offer Team 7 a few bowls of ramen from the former's store. The latter had been in numerous meetings with the Jonin. Tales, rumors, and legends of his shinobi prowess were of world renown. The former sensei of Team 8 didn't much share in the man's taste of literature, but that was his own business. And have either of you heard of someone named Shizen? Naruto asked. Ayam shook her head, but both heard Kurenai gasp. She exclaimed Shizen to them both. Needless to say, but clearly Naruto underestimated the woman. The Genjutsu mistress explained that Shizen was indeed a citizen of Konoha. She was also one of the most experienced medics in the world thanks to her having been the very first apprentice of Senju Tsunade, the best medic nin and strongest kunoichi in all the elemental nations. After a moment, Naruto used the green chakra to massage his mind and help him relieve some of the memories in his head. He had heard of Senju Tsunade a few times in his life in the academy. She was the heiress of the famed Senju clan. She was the granddaughter of the Shodaime Hokage, Senju Hashirama. She was a bit of a gambling addict, which gave her the moniker the legendary sucker. Seemed like an oddly obtuse title. She was also presumably the last direct descendant of the Senju clan, thus making her the heiress of the famous clan. Tsunade had paved the way for the medical evolution of not just Konoha, but also the entire elemental nations. Shizen had directly studied under this woman. That made her quite powerful. To say Naruto was impressed was an understatement. Kurenai then went on to explain that she'd been in the academy with Shizen along with a few other jonin. When asked about her, Naruto explained. She's with him, he said. Ayam and Kurenai glanced at each other, but Naruto continued with the news. They had become part of a settlement to the far west under the command of Raiga and Ranmaru. Kurenai frowned. She heard of Raiga before. The man was an ex-Kuririn, definitely one of the most powerful to be produced by the village hidden in the mist. He was a member of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist. He was also a part of Kirizumbu. One didn't mess with him lightly. Unfortunately, she didn't know anything about a boy called Ranmaru, but both quickly came to know. Naruto told them both of what he knew of Ranmaru. Though he'd never seen the person, they were considered a god to the people because they were like Naruto. They had green chakra just like he did. However, he then gave his friends the most important information. Ranmaru could grant others in his settlement chakra. With that chakra, they could do all the things that shinobi used to do. Ayam and Kurenai were stunned. Did that mean Naruto could give them chakra as well? This knowledge certainly changed things. Unfortunately, he also told them that it wasn't permanent. For whatever reason, their chakra wouldn't refill. They had to constantly come back to inheritors, i.e. Naruto or Ranmaru, for more chakra. It seemed Raiga and Ranmaru had some type of relationship since the man was made the second in command of the settlement. When he was captured, Naruto told them he was willing to join the settlement since he'd found Kakashi. Unfortunately, he didn't desire to fight these people in their home field advantage, especially not against an inheritor he didn't even know where they were. Unfortunately, they knew more about Naruto than he knew about them. Once everything was done, Kurenai frowned. And you had to guide them here. Did you tell them about the others? She asked. He shook his head. No. Though I'm glad to see Kakashi-sensei, I'm not going to give them more info than they've already got. I only told them about you guys because it gave us a chance to get together again. You'll also have to be inspected, he snarled out. The two women frowned. By the females, I hope? Kurenai asked. Naruto nodded. Any less and they'd be down 2 settlement members, he stated. That made them both happy. And they're outside now? The former ramen waitress asked. The Uzumaki heir nodded. Yeah, we collect you and then we head back to the settlement. Don't worry, I'm already coming up with something since we have to go back to Tenten, Shino, and Kosuke-san eventually. We'll discuss more when we're. Naruto didn't get the chance to finish before he heard a blood-curdling scream in the distance. The three stiffened and the young Uzumaki quickly channeled chakra into his eyes. He saw Kakashi's group running for the shack. There used to be 5. Now there were 4. Another scream came. He saw the 4th person disappear beneath the ground. He watched their bones get ripped apart by several tendril-like limbs. Their body exploded into 6 pieces of 4 limbs, a head, and a torso. What he said even made him sweat. There was so much green chakra, enough that even his own seemed like a plaything to what lay beneath the ground. Something nearly made even him fall to his knees in reverence. By sheer will, he did not do this. He felt he would lose something unimaginable if his legs buckled now. Shit, he thought as he stood up. Kurenai, open the door. Get everyone inside, he ordered. Both women agreed. Kurenai pulled off the sheets that covered the door. She then pulled it up. Kakashi, Shizen, and the other member continued running. The 3 saw them running as something moved beneath the sand. Whatever it was large. It was larger than any sand dweller he'd encountered back in Konoha. It was massive. No, it was monstrous. Something rumbled beneath the earth. The ground split into pieces. Earthquakes shook the ground violently. Kakashi and Shizen dived through the door. The other person screamed as they tried to make it before tendrils fired from beneath the rough ground. A shiver ran through Naruto's body. Those tendrils, they looked familiar. They looked like the ones back in the Chunin exam stadium. Everyone watched in horror as the skin-like whips wrapped around the person's body. Help me! Help me, please! They screamed as the tendrils wrapped around their throat, one of their arms, their torso, and their left leg. Their free hand stretched out for anyone. Quickly, Naruto moved. He grabbed the person's arm and pulled as hard as he could, but his strength was not enough. It was like he was playing tug-of-war with a damn mountain. The blonde cursed as he channeled the green chakra into his body. He then begged Kyuubi for some. The fox obliged, and the vast wells of strength moved through the Uzumaki inheritor's body. The person's tears stained the floor as the tendrils pulled them out of the building. The young man's chakra surged. Doton, Dorikatsu, Earth Release, Earth Flow Divide. Naruto growled as he slammed his foot on the ground. The sand and hard earth under his feet exploded as a line split rushed through the area. Next, pounds and slabs of earth ruptured through the underground patterns of the underground. They exploded to the surface and toppled over each other, right on top of the monster attacking them all. There came a vicious roar, but the creature did not relent. Kakashi and Kurenai quickly moved. The former grabbed the blonde's torso and pulled. The Genjutsu mistress grabbed the one-eyed Jonin's chest. Then Shizen and Ayam came in. Please! 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 Don't let me go! I don't want to die! The person whimpered as they felt what they could only describe as needles piercing through their skin. Unknown to them, the tendrils laced in a numbing poison, weakening the strength of their grip. Naruto pushed more chakra through his veins. His veins burned. Katon, Goku Mekyaku, Fire Release, Great Fire Destruction. Naruto hollered as the combination of the green chakra and the Kyuubi's chakra exploded the fire jutsu. So much force was there that everyone behind him felt the burning heat as the blonde was careful not to accidentally kill the person they were trying to save. The flames were hot and wild. They all heard something scream and screech as pillars of fire raged and tore through the sandy terrain. So much devastation coursed through the fields that Naruto's chakra corrupted the very delicate, yet turbulent state of the environment. The flames flew high into the air and the sandy storms only made them stronger. Many, for years, would wonder how this area became known as the desolate burning sands. Whatever was beneath the ground, it screamed, but to everyone's shock, it would still not let go. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki concentrated. He concentrated hard. He concentrated so hard a vein stretched on his head. Blood spilled out from his mouth as the flames burned his tongue. Doton, Daikidakaku, Earth Release, Great Moving Earth Core. Araraten, Kangekiha, Lightning Release, Wave of Inspiration. Both techniques Naruto shouted mentally. The skies rumbled and the earth quaked. A massive sinkhole appeared over the creatures as countless tides of rain fell into it. As the rain came down in heavy spurts, pink lightning crashed down right into it, mixing with the flames and creating the grandest display of elemental techniques that anyone had ever seen. The screams of the creatures continued, but soon Naruto stopped from the strain of such highly powered techniques. Finally, the tendrils dropped. Everyone fell to their knees. They all panted as the person rushed inside and grabbed Naruto's hand. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll repay this debt. I swear it. The person said while Naruto chuckled. Forgive him if he didn't speak. His throat burned something fierce. Thank him later. Just get inside, Shizen said. The person agreed. As soon as they stood up, they suddenly screamed again as the tendrils wrapped around their legs. They held out their hand. Kakashi shivered. So many jutsu and it's still alive? What is this? Kakashi thought before they all moved again. Naruto grabbed her hand. The five pulled. They pulled hard. They pulled with all their strength. They pulled and pulled and pulled until everyone fell back and crashed onto the floor. They all groaned before they opened their eyes. In absolute horror, they saw that the only reward for their efforts was the arm of the woman they tried to save. The fingers twitched and spasmed, the nerves moving it for its last moments. They looked up. The person of Kakashi and Shizen's settlement screamed in ways that no human should. Her body ragdolled on the ground as she hollered in pain. Blood spurted out from every corner of her body before she was slowly dragged into the sand. Just before her body disappeared, 3 tendrils erupted from her mouth. The ground ruptured for a moment before it settled. The sudden group of 5 shivered in utter shock before the sands moved again. The shop they were all helplessly trapped and creaked ominously. Then, a massive body than what could be considered natural erupted into the air. Its body seemed to fly up for miles. Naruto widened his eyes. It was even bigger than the boss toad, Gamabunta. What the fuck was this thing? When it stopped, they heard a booming roar that made them all cover their ears. So large was this creature that the skies darkened over them. As if things couldn't get any worse, there came a gurgling noise. It was impossible to tune out the grotesque ambience before they heard what sounded like rain. When they opened their eyes, they wished they hadn't. Perhaps now they understood what happened to KyuubiGoku and the land surrounding it, for they saw blood drop like rain over the hot ground. Blood and tons of bones, animals, humans, or whatever was in between. The creature then groaned when it crashed into the sand and slithered away, his body hiding beneath the earth. For the next half an hour, fear gripped everyone's body as they wondered what they were supposed to do next. What was that? I asked as Naruto dropped the severed arm on the ground. Never did I think I'd see one before. It was theorized, but none dared speak the possibility openly. Just like some humans can be inheritors, creatures could become inheritors as well. However, where the inheritors are those who shall rule the wasteland, they are the ones that will end it, and everything around them. That was a desolator, a royal wasteland desolator, Shizen said, a quiver in her voice. That's it for part 6. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.